Hello and welcome to the circus.
This high, be the type of shit that keep me up at night. Never short of a breath when I spit my rhymes. From the forms I express every fucking time. Bring me back to the light when I feel it right. This life, something special when I'm on my grind. Never short of the stress when I spit the mind. But of course, never.
Welcome back. I am the Fantasy Football Joker. Thank you so much for joining me on this wonderful Friday. As always, make sure to check in on fantasyfootballadviceforum.com. It is only $2.99 a month, and you can get 10% off by using my exclusive code JOKER420. You can get all kinds of great exclusive content, including my articles, which you can only get on that site. There's also just like a great community that's building over there. There's all kinds of awesome content creators, a bunch of actual like fantasy experts and analysts. And then, of course, my goofy self. You can always hang out with the Joker. So make sure that you go sign up to fantasyfootballadviceforum.com. Today we have yet another draft, and I thought I would multitask today, and I would actually give you guys my 8-point draft strategy while I also draft a weekly winners with Underdog. Underdog sent me some free swag, which was awesome. I was in a draft where I took all of the 49ers, if you guys remember. That one was filmed, so go check out that previous episode. It was a Best Ball Mania 4 draft where I ended up taking Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle all together. So they sent me brand new shirts, including this 49ers themed one. They also sent me, I had asked for Indianapolis Colts, Carolina Panthers, and Pittsburgh Steelers for me, my wife, and my son, because those are all our three favorite teams. Me, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is the best one. So I was very happy to receive that. That was awesome. Huge shout out to Underdog team for everything they do. I think obviously like all the stuff they do on the app is amazing. And it's the only one I use. I am up in Canada, so my access is a little bit more limited than if you live down in the United States. But I also just, it's clean, and I love the way it runs. And look at this. I get my favorite draft spot, the 106. So we'll start with, now this is perfect because this is my favorite draft spot, but I mean, look, my least favorite is 102, and in this instance it would be 111 because I hate being at the extreme ends. But if I'm going to be at the extreme ends, I want to be able to double tap my players. I don't want to be the one watching the guy double tap, because then it's almost like you're almost guaranteed to get swiped because he's going to be picking two players instead of one in front of you. And I hate that feeling. But even in those instances where I've had to draft from that position, my first piece of advice,
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water.
You just gotta be water. You gotta be adaptable. You gotta be willing to not go in with a set plan in mind, but just have, and the shout out to all the analysts out there that do, hard crunch the numbers, do the awesome statistical work. That's not really what I do. I'm already on the clock here. You know what? I'm going to pivot. I have not taken any Bijan Robinson at all. I've been down on him, but you know what? I'm starting to rise on him. So we'll take a Bijan Robinson share, which is so rare for me. So it's just a perfect example of I'm adapting. This is weekly winners, so I'm going to be trying some different strategies than I would normally do because I'm trying to hit on those week winning performances. And I think as much as Bijan scares me as a rookie, I do think there is definitely going to be instances where he's going to have some monster weeks. So the first thing is, like I said, you got to stay adaptable. You got to be willing to pivot. You can't be so set in stone that I must have a running back and or wide receiver and or any other, like, again, the 0 RB is fine, but if you look up and everyone in the league is doing that and you see 6 wide receivers go off the board, then in that case, take the best running back. There's a lot of analysts that tout the tier-based ranking, where essentially it's the idea of taking the best player available. And I do believe that that is the best thing to do. And it's also being adaptable to, there's players I love, but a perfect example is I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I said it, you can see it in the background. Last year, though, I was completely out on Najee Harris and just all the Steelers for that matter. I really didn't draft very many of them. I was looking at the situation with Kenny Pickett coming in as a rookie. I didn't like what was going on with the offensive line at the time. I thought the transition from Ben Roethlisberger could be stiff and difficult, and they were in a tough division and just a tough conference overall. And I didn't like the schedule, and so there was just a lot of reasons that I was very down on the ceiling, and so it made no sense to me to be investing, especially Najee Harris. Last year was going in first and second rounds, so it just was not something that I was willing to do last year. And already it's weird. I'm definitely seeing some differences. We're going to go with, again, I haven't really done this, but double tap running back at the beginning here. We'll go with Bijan and then King Henry. I love Derrick Henry's week 17. They're going to be in those clean powder blues playing the Houston Texans. He's going for 500 yards in that instance. And my second piece of advice, and I should technically be doing it right now, but playing it willy-nilly because I am the Joker. It's what I do. But in your case, before the draft has even started, go in there, queue up. You got to make sure that you set a queue, especially in these 30-second, 1-minute drafts with redraft season right around the corner. You never know when technical difficulties are going to arise. There's always that guy in the league, oh, my phone messed up, my computer wasn't working, this, that, the other thing, my phone died. Whatever the situation is, when and if by some unfortunate reason you happen to be the person that gets auto drafted, you want it to at least auto draft from your list of players, because otherwise, it's going to give you just the highest ranked player, and it may not even fit your team. And it can really, if that happens, a couple rounds in a row, I've seen it really jack up some people's teams, and then it's a very discouraging thing too, and it can really put a big poo-poo on the beginning of your season. And it takes an experienced fantasy manager to break out of that funk and then also manage through and manage their team, not overreact, not necessarily trade away pieces that maybe they should otherwise keep. So definitely just set a queue. It's such an easy thing to do. It's literally the most minimal amount of preparation. Speaking of, I'm actually even going to start setting a queue maybe after this. Well, I'll try and not only multitask, I'll be triple tasking at this point. I like DK Metcalf here because we need a wide receiver. And again, we're looking for those spike weeks because it's the weekly winners. This is what I love about being in the middle is I never have to wait too long to get my pick in. I feel like I'm always getting pretty decent value. And, it's easy. We're still in those very early rounds, but when you're getting into the last rounds, and especially when you play in deeper leagues, I think when the deeper the league you play in, the easier it gets to play in shallow leagues, because you got to know what's in those deep waters, or else you're going to get bit.
Now you've seen how bad things can get and how quick they can get that way. Well, they can get a whole lot worse. And we're going to find a way to get out of here. First, we're going to seal off this
Ugh. Yeah. You don't want to be getting caught in those last rounds and you're just like, you don't know what's happening. You're just taking random shots on flyers, on people that you don't even know. Like I said, when you play in those really deep leagues, so for example, I play in a couple of 16-man dynasty leagues. I know there's people out there playing in even crazier, like 32-man leagues and that kind of thing. But dynasty leagues, anything beyond 14 team, essentially forces you to know basically every player in every situation in the league, kind of, whether you want to or not. Like it becomes like in passing, you just kind of are forced to know. Man, I just want to comment real fast. The quarterback price has been driven way up. I was getting Justin Herbert routinely in the 5th round before. Now that's got to be the highest I've seen Herbert go. But like I was just saying, you got to know those deep waters. And the other thing you got to know the league settings.
I give you my Chictionary. May it be as good to you as it has been to me. You can feel it.
You gotta know league settings. Obviously, number one, roster setup. The difference between starting 3 wide receiver and starting 2 wide receiver is so much bigger than people think. Like, I know you're looking at it like, oh, it's just one guy. Trust, I've been in those leagues where it's like starting 3 wide receivers some weeks feels like a chore. And when you just have like the 3 kind of studly guys that you can slide in there, it ends up being a bigger advantage than you think, especially on the spike weeks when they will hit like 20 or 30 each. It's almost like automatic week winner at that point. We are up next here. So we've already got a couple running backs. Normally, I would love to take Najee Harris here, but I'm going to take DJ Moore. I'm just getting so hot and bothered with DJ Moore, and I think he's going to help Fields elevate and vice versa. I think DJ Moore could definitely be in. Normally, when a wide receiver changes teams, it actually can take a little bit longer, but they've been working so much in the offseason. I think DJ Moore's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, which is something I love. I definitely like Fields to take a little bit of a leap this year. I think the division is definitely wide open with Aaron Rodgers having left. Kirk Cousins, unfortunately, like I love Kirk Cousins, the man. But as a fantasy quarterback, if you look even in, I look at Scott Fishbowl scoring because it's nerfed, meaning there's no negative for a quarterback. And even in that nerfed scoring where quarterbacks routinely can get 40 to 50 points, there was 7 games where Kirk was under 25 fantasy points. And, several of those games were under 20 and worse. So those are losing weeks that will cost you when you're having to face, even like you get caught on the wrong 2 a week and you're going to get wiped out. Ooh, I don't think he would, but if for some reason Najee Harris were to slip to me there, I would not mind that. I think I might even take a 3rd running back in that instance. Alexander Mattison before Najee Harris is absolutely ludicrous, insane. walkie-talkie. He just got hurt too. Oh man, this could happen. Oh, it happened. Wow. Well, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and finish off my running backs, basically. I don't have to draft another running back for the rest of this draft. It almost feels like between Bijan, Derrick Henry, and Najee, all with different bye weeks. And again, knowing the format for the weekly winner is important. It's 2 running back and a flex. As you can see right here, 2 running back flex. So if I've got 3 workhorse like Bijan, Derrick Henry, Najee, that is a pretty solid start. And there is still a lot of wide receiver and tight end that I like on the board. And, being single quarterback, just grab quarterbacks later. I'm liking this build so far for sure. Now, had Najee gone that one spot before me, though, Christian Watson would have been pushing me, and I would have taken Christian Watson because history says that Jordan Love and Christian Watson are going to be good. And, I've kind of been loosely, we'll just recap. So number 1 was be water, stay adaptable. Number 2, set a Q. That's obvious, right? Number 3, know the deep waters, meaning have at least one deep league that you can play in, even if it's a free league, just for practice, so that you can really get to know every single player in every situation. Because then when you are in those casual leagues and those 10-man leagues, you're going to be like you're going to realize, oh, because I know certain situations, like I might be higher or lower on some players, I might take certain shots here and there. It gives you a little bit of an advantage, I find. Especially in those casual leagues, especially hometown leagues where it's like they're not paying that level of attention. And then number 4 was to know the league settings. Again, roster construction, scoring. It's so often that commissioners kind of mess with the scoring, and it's so easy to overlook going into those settings and really looking at the scoring. I almost did it even in a league where I'm drafting today, and I've been trading up through that draft to get players a little higher up, trading up picks basically. But it's a super flex league, and so obviously normally you would prioritize the quarterback, but when I went and double checked on the scoring, I realized that the commissioner had set it so that 40 plus and 50 plus runs and receptions, touchdowns, were 4 and 6 points, basically the same as, a passing touchdown from a quarterback. And so that really boosts the scoring of certain running backs and wide receivers to the point where you could even say that it boosts it over certain middling quarterbacks. And so it pushes down the value of quarterbacks even in a super flex league, in that very specific league. Now, that's not a very normal scoring setting, but if I had not checked and had not known, again, that's something that I don't get to take advantage of. Now, kind of would love to take JSN here. Kind of would love Deontay, but I'm going to go with Gabe Davis because I like his spike weeks in this in this weekly winner format. If Gabe Davis has that week of he catches 200 yards and 3-4 touchdowns or whatever it is on 4 catches, I don't care. That's awesome for me in this format. And especially as my 3rd wide receiver, and to differentiate, because yes, I like Deontay Johnson. Jordan Addison was interesting. I should have looked down a little bit further maybe, but JSN, because I have DK, I didn't want to have both of them as much as I love JSN. So right now we are all skill players, very almost traditional build. I still have Evan Ingram on the board as a tight end who I love. The Muth. Now there's, the correlation of like Najee and the Muth, that doesn't bother me whatsoever. Now, interestingly, I have not taken much Tua, but for spike weeks, Tua could definitely be very interesting if we pair him with someone later. We'll see. T.O. here needs a quarterback. We'll see if they take Tua. I also haven't taken any Voldemort, Mr. Deshaun Watson. We'll see if Elliott's already got a quarterback. Oh, look at that. We'll take Tua here. I like Tua. I mean, his wide receivers are deadly, and I think A-Shane could really add a home run hitting aspect to their receiving game out of screens, which would definitely benefit Tua, because he's getting the ball out of his hands too fast for the defensive ends and tackles to get to him. Kind of wish I would have gone Evan Ingram there. See, I've said before, I hate when that happens where it's like I'm deciding between two guys, and then the guy that I was deciding between goes immediately after, where it's like I would have felt better swiping Evan Ingram from JIC 56 here. But it's fine, We'll get into number 6 on the 8-point draft strategy.
Get me the ball. Get you the ball. Are you going to get me the ball? I'll get you the ball. I hope he doesn't kill somebody.
Coaching matters. Coaching is, to me, the biggest predictor of success for fantasy football. I really believe that, it's good coaching by far and away is, the most important thing for, like, when you look at any bad team, generally speaking, the lack of fantasy production comes from the lack of coaching. And yes, it can be overcome by sheer volume, but I prefer efficient fantasy production on less touches compared to just outright gross volume. So, for example, I would almost rather have a player that gets 3 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown than have to watch a guy grind out 60 yards on 20 carries. Like, it's just, it's so nerve-wracking, and you're like praying that they fall into the end zone, where it's like the other guy, it's one play, and I'm like, oh, very uplifting. So I just, that's the example of like a Rashad White versus a James Cook. When you're making that kind of a decision, I trust the coaching in Buffalo far more than I trust the coaching in Tampa Bay. And I know what they're going to do with Rashad White, which is they're going to run him in between the tackles, 300 times. And that's just not effective in today's NFL. And yes, he may end up with a gross 1,000-yard, 5 touchdown season, but that's not what I am looking for, because it's just, especially in like this format with the weekly winners. But again, that goes back to what I said about knowing settings of your league. Now, if it's a league where it's like, okay, they're getting for some the the commissioner is living in the 1950s, and he's very upset about this whole running back debate and how the running backs have been devalued. And so he has decided that it's going to be a point per carry, full point per carry. Okay, fine. In that case, draft the volume running backs. But for the most part, that's kind of where we've seen the devaluation of running backs in real life, is that 3 yards and a cloud of dust is no longer a winning mantra in football the way it was even just in the late 90s. And so now teams are adapting, and the running back position is adapting, but has not fully adapted and still carries a lot of injury risk. But when you look at players like Austin Eckler and Christian McCaffrey, that's the future of the position, is these guys that are just as much receiving threats as they are, running threats out of the backfield. And even Derrick Henry has started to become more involved in the passing game. So we're going to put running backs. I feel good about running back, wide receiver. I feel like we can wait on Danny Dimes, though. Oh, maybe not. Okay, we're going to take Daniel Jones here. So I like the rushing upside of Daniel Jones, and I want to combine him with Tua, because then I feel like I can get spike weeks from either one of them. And I feel like the rest of my core here is really, really solid, to where I just want to make sure that I at least have one healthy quarterback. And I might even get like a Matt Stafford very, very late to just round this out. Maybe even like a Ryan Tannehill. We'll see who falls really late. But right now, Bijan, Derrick Henry, Najee, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Gabe Davis, Pat Freiermuth. This is, again, getting to, this will be that'll be the number 8 point. But before we get there, I haven't really done it in this format, but normally, I am all about those.
Secret of making a good pancake is to flip it high into the air. Whoopla!
There's nothing like a good stack in fantasy football, and I especially love the quarterback tight end stack. I think that's become the most obvious and most popular. The success of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce dominating fantasy football leagues for the last 2 years, which I have been a personal beneficiary of. They led me to a championship 2 years ago in my home league. They carried me to a championship last year, which unfortunately I ended up losing in a 16-man dynasty last year. This year, I hope that they will carry me to fantasy glory to get that championship this year. But for the most part, their price has been driven up so high that I haven't been drafting as much of them. And so I said in a prior episode, and I also said, go check out at FF Mad Scientist and the show that I did with him with sleepers, breakouts, and busts. But basically my 2 favorite quarterback tight end stacks this year, Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson. And also, we're on the clock here. Who do we want to get? You know what? It's gross, but I think we should. No, I'm going to take. No. Oh, God. We're going to get. Oh, God. Oh, okay. Well, I messed up there. It ended up taking Cortland Sutton for me, which is fine. I was kind of in between him and Samaje Perine, and it was kind of gross to take Sutton. But as a 4th wide receiver, I don't entirely hate it. Maybe. I'm already like, oh, I kind of hate that pick. But this is a rough patch in the draft where it's like, I'm glad that I have my whole team basically together now. And this is where, again, that just happened to me because I didn't have my Q set. So it goes back to number 2. I should learn learn my own lessons, I guess. In fact, let's go ahead and start setting a couple of these guys. And again, so now we're getting into the last parts of the draft. Like when you get down to Gerald Everett, Van Jefferson, KJ Osborne's of the world, like you're definitely at the end of your drafts. And this is where my last piece of advice definitely comes in.
Impossible.
Booyah! Wow! this kicks like a mule with his balls wrapped in duct tape. Wow! Tight, yeah!
You gotta get those correlating pieces that just give you that Avenger power. And correlating pieces, what I mean by that, it's not always handcuffs, which I think is the common misnomer, but it's the type of players that you're drafting and the positions that you're drafting, all of those different little factors of like differentiators on why to draft certain players at the end of your draft. I just saw one guy that I really wanted to put in my queue, and I almost left without him. Oh, now I've gone past. Ty Chandler, by the way, little deep sleeper. He is he's a running back for the Minnesota Vikings that runs a sub 4.4. He never really played last year. He's in his second year. If Madison isn't all the way healthy, you could end up seeing him get some time. And if he were to pop for any kind of reason, that he could be something. There we go. Jalen Hyatt. I'm starting to really get high on Hyatt. All right. So what I was saying about correlating pieces. So when you look at my roster, you look at a guy like Tua, and it's like, okay, I could draft his direct backup, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense. I would rather have more upside than that. And so that's where it's like I would take a third quarterback like a Matt Stafford or a Bryce Young late. That's a correlating piece. You look at the types of running backs that I took here. I took Bijan, Derrick Henry, Najee. That means I don't really have to worry about the types of running backs I take later. So I can just take upside picks, guys that I may not normally take, guys that I don't usually want to rely on. I like Khalil Herbert. I don't think the Bears are totally in love with him. They drafted Roschon Johnson, signed Deontay Foreman for a reason. I think Khalil Herbert, because he's been there, will maybe get the shot in training camp to be the starter, but I don't think it's guaranteed that he holds that job through the year. And if Roschon Johnson especially outperforms him, I could see Roschon taking over that job at some point. And then like I took DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Gabe Davis, and Cortland Sutton. Now Sutton, obviously, that was a little bit of a player error on my part, but these are spike week type of big play wide receivers. And so when I'm down now looking at this type of area, now Adam Thielen was drafted already, but if I'm choosing between Jonathan Mingo, who I really like, and Adam Thielen for this wide receiver room, in that case, I would have gone with Adam Thielen because he gives me that veteran presence. He gives me what I feel like is more assured production in those beginning weeks of the season, because I feel like he's going to get juice from being on a new team and from being like the veteran red zone target for the rookie there, Bryce Young. So because we want a little bit something more safe, because we took a lot of spike weeks, I'm going to take KJ Osborne here instead of taking more rookie upside in that case. So again, that's a correlating piece that I am taking based on the players that I took earlier. Now, if I had taken Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp, or maybe some older wide receivers that are still producing but are starting to get a little long in the tooth, that's where, okay, maybe those guys struggle later in the season, and I'm going to want rookie upside to kind of fill in those later weeks if for some reason my older players were to get injured along the way. And again, that's correlating pieces. It's building a balanced roster ultimately, because everything just always, like Thanos, everything is balanced. That was not an impersonation. That was bad heartburn because I'm getting older and I had to double up on the coffees. But yeah, that's basically it. I mean, it's not that complicated. It's not rocket science. I try to keep it simple. We always try to keep it easy peasy on the Fantasy Football Joker. So we'll recap right after my pick here. Now this is interesting. I have done sometimes, but we're actually going to take Rashid Shaheed. Shout out to Matt Harmon of Reception Perception. I was listening to their podcast earlier today. It's fantastic. It's James Coe and Matt Harmon. Go check it out on iTunes, Apple's, and Spotify. Fantastic stuff. Way better than anything I'll ever produce in my life in terms of like analytical content. I always say surround yourself with people smarter than you. That's one of the places I love to go. Reception Perception has been around for a long time. I think it really changed the game for fantasy football and for fantasy football players. I think it was a large reason that we saw kind of the advent of the shift away from heavy running back in fantasy football, is realizing just how much easier almost it can be to predict wide receivers than we think when you're looking at things like the effectiveness of their routes and catch rate percentages and combining all of those things. And now they're doing work where they're combining it with quarterback breakdowns and putting those two together. So it's just absolutely brilliant work. But he was mentioning how he likes Rashid Shaheed. And so I'm just going to go ahead and steal that. And if he makes it back to me, James Coe said he liked Marvin Mims. So I'll take that one too, just in honor of both of them. But we'll recap the draft strategy. 8.8 is my lucky number, so I tried to keep it condensed. So again, be water, stay adaptable, and also stay balanced. So I don't like to be like, I have to take 3 running back, I have to take 3 wide receiver. We saw I took players I felt were values when they were available, and I ended up with, in my first 6 picks, 3 running back and 3 wide receiver, because in this format, I was very comfortable waiting on the 1Z positions. Sometimes I will flip it. I like to take Lamar and Mark Andrews sometimes, especially if I'm at 212, 3-1. Even sometimes in this case, I think Lamar went 311. So the price is being driven up on them. So I think that's where it's going to settle, where to get ahead of the curve. If you are at the 212, 3-1, that's where I do recommend doing the double tap, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, because you'll have already either a stud running back or stud wide receiver based on what you did in your first round. And then you cover your 2 1Z positions with a beautiful stack that I think could legitimately both compete for not just top 5, but top 3 in fantasy production. I don't think Lamar is injury prone or riddled. Like, he missed 4 games the last 2 seasons. It's not like he missed the whole season. It's not like he had some devastating season-ending injury, and they sucked last year. There was no reason to bring him back. it makes no sense to me. So I love getting at that, like I said, late 2-3 turn, and then just after that, focus on building out the rest of your roster. It's easy to just go running back, wide receiver thereafter, and build a nice balanced roster. So stay adaptable and stay balanced. Number 2, set a cue. Saw it to me. I was talking, and then I kind of hemmed and hawed about who I wanted, and I ended up getting auto draft Cortland Sutton because I did not set a cue. It's a very simple thing. Oh, actually, I'm glad I said that out loud because now I don't really want Marvin Mims. You know what? Let's take Roshan John. Oh, dealing with injury. What? Okay, no. Let's take John Mechie. I love John Mechie. I love his story. I just really want to see him succeed. I think that would be really cool. So we'll take him. All right. So set a cue because we saw it's so easy to get auto draft, especially with redraft season around the corner with these 30-second, 60-second clocks. Make sure that you set a cue. Number 3, know the deep waters, especially look, this is best ball. We're already down to the Roshan Johnson, Marvin Mims, Devin Singletaries of the world. So you kind of got to know your situations a little bit, especially as you get into these deep waters, or you will get bit. Number 4, league settings equals the league Bible. Make sure that you know your league settings backwards, forwards, upwards, downwards, sideways. Make sure you know the roster construction and all the scoring settings. And then even beyond settings, as you become familiar with league mates, you start to know player tendencies. You kind of get a vibe for how the league operates in terms of trades and how the commish runs things. So those are all aspects. Every league is kind of its own organic thing that you have to almost adapt and learn as you go. Because very rarely is every single league like, besides ones that are like kind of run online by, I guess, like companies or representatives. For most, especially home leagues are just all over the place. So what we could do here is go ahead and take. I like the upside of Bryce Young. I really think he could end up taking over here late down the stretch as like a very like a good fantasy force. Got check the draft board here. Okay, we still got 3 picks left. That's good. That's what I was looking at. We need another tight end. Man, some of these injuries. See, and I'm very comfortable with my running backs where I'm like, I don't even need to take another running back. Pretty sure Bijan, Derrick Henry, Najee Harris get me through. Khalil Herbert could have some spike weeks. That would definitely help. I might take Ty Chandler. I was thinking double tapping Gesicki, Hunter Henry. Anyways, getting back to, So 8-point strategy. Be water. Set a cue. Know the deep waters. League settings are the league Bible. History repeats itself. It's one of the biggest indicators of future success is past success, whether that be for players, but most importantly for coaching. And I think especially for coaching schemes something I was listening to, again, shout out to the same podcast I mentioned earlier, Reception Perception. They had mentioned, and this is like, it seems like such an obvious thing, but many players succeed, and not just many, like most running backs especially succeed on outside runs more than inside runs. Even Nick Chubb was far more significant, like had much better production on outside runs than inside runs. Because obviously running sending a running back up the center's ass every time like is not going to help you win games. If you send them outside into space, you get the blocking set up. On occasion, yes, you might take a loss, but for the most part, if you're able to, toss, power, sweep, and block properly, like you get a running back out in space, it's going to be hell on the linebackers and safeties, and especially any defensive backs that are unfortunate enough to try and have to tackle Nick Chubb in the open field. Good luck with that. So, history repeats itself. Number 6, coaching matters. Again, did I just repeat myself? No. We were talking about it. Number 5 ties so easily into number 6. It almost felt like the same, but no, history repeats itself. Players and coaches, it's the easiest predictor. And sometimes, I think we all fall in love with certain players where we're like, we really want certain players to break out. We have guys that we love, and it's like, you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And I think it's easy to, fall in love with a player. And when a player really tells you who they are, you got to believe them sometimes. So, again, number 5, history repeats itself. Number 6, coaching matters. Number 7, stacks on stacks on stacks. Everybody loves their stacks. And number 8, correlating pieces with late flyers. So again, that's not just getting certain handcuffs in certain situations. So for example, I don't really believe in handcuffing like Derrick Henry and Najee Harris necessarily here. But, if I had taken Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert, that might not have been a bad idea. If those are the 2 that I really believe out of the 3 that are going to have the best chance to make an impact, I like Deontay Foreman as a red zone guy. Maybe he ends up actually being the best running back. I like his violent nature. I liked him in Carolina, but I don't know if he's really going to be the one to take work away from both Herbert and Roschon. So I guess we'll see. But, like I said, it's the correlating pieces. So it's whether I would have taken Adam Thielen or Mingo, the rookie there. And see, I'll just take a late shot on Ty Chandler, because especially if Madison is hurt in any kind of real capacity, that could end up paying off. And then take a random tight end to close it out. Who do I like? What? Noah Fant's just been kind of left for dead. He low-key had 500 yards last year. Oh, Cade Otton. That's maybe some secret sauce. I really hate the quarterbacks for Tampa, but I mean, somebody's got to catch the ball there besides Evans and Godwin. Actually, it could just be them too. I don't know. Maybe we'll take Mike Gesicki. Patriots love to use 2 tight ends. You could have some weeks. I just need him to fall into the end zone. But yeah, even like a guy like a Jalen Hyatt, those kind of rookie upside picks that I take late, definitely those are correlating pieces depending on who you took earlier. It might actually be if you took here's a perfect example. If I took all the sophomore wide receivers, if I had Olave, London, and Watson, in that case, I might not be drafting like Jalen Hyatt and John Mechie down in these rounds. I'm going to be looking more for like Darius Slayton and guys where Corey Davis. It's like these veterans that are going to have spike weeks. Yeah, do I just punt tight end here? Because I was kind of remembering I want Mac Hollins. I just really don't like any of these tight ends. I think I just might. You know what? We're going to do it. See how that works for us. Jimmy Graham. That's so funny to me that Jimmy Grandpa back in the league. You know, that was another one. The quarterback tight end stack, I think people forget, like, it goes back even earlier than Mahomes-Kelsey. Mahomes-Kelsey dominated, but back in the days of Brady and Gronkowski together, that was deadly. Breeze and Jimmy Grandpa, when Jimmy Graham had his monster season, like, that was my first year in fantasy football, was my best friend and rival in that league had Jimmy Graham, and it was just such a massive advantage every week for him to get 25, 30 points from the tight end position. And that was the first time I realized, like, yeah, that, you know, that onesie. And then I think at one point he made a trade to get Breeze, and so he had the stack, and I was like, it is just like impossible to beat that. It's like 50 points automatic almost every week. And then so that kind of taught me the lesson early. And so when I saw Mahomes, Kelsey, Bruin, I kind of recognized it early. And so, like I said, I've been on that for 2 years, and this is the first year where I've been priced out of the neighborhood finally. You know, this is one of those things. This is like a personal gripe, but like, why is Taysom Hill, why does he get tight end status, but Mac Hollins, who looks like a linebacker, doesn't? Like, let me play Mac Hollins as a tight end. I know technically he's a wide receiver, but he is monstrous. He just, and the quote that he had was amazing. I don't like soft people. I don't even like utensils. Utensils are soft. That's not exactly what he said, but he even said, he's like, shoes are soft. This man's like, beds are soft. Sleep on the floor. What else is soft? Showers are soft. Scrape yourself with steel wool. Rip the skin right off your body like an iguana and grow new skin. Oh, yeah, I'm definitely feeling my age and the time. That's basically the end of this draft. Really didn't recap the draft that much, but that's okay. I feel like I've done a lot of these drafts where I just narrate through. Let's just go look and see, besides my team, which obviously I love, who else's team that I really like here. Just giving a cursory look. Packers fan here. Going with the Eagles stack off the bat. I always love that. A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Came back with Ramondre and Joe Mixon. Brandon Ayukin. Not a big fan of Kyle Pitts. Neither is Arthur Smith, which is why I don't think Kyle Pitts is going to be effective for fantasy, unfortunately. It's just because Arthur Smith hates him. Voldemort, Kamara, Jameson Williams. When he comes back, that'll be nice. Nice value. He ended up getting Mingo. I like that. I think Chig, it's so funny that like people were so high on Chig, and now he's going after Dawson Knox just because DeAndre Hopkins signed there. Like that helps Chig, right? I don't think people realize, like, if the safety is looking at DeAndre Hopkins and they're trying to play over to his side of the field, that loosens up the middle of the field where Chig would be. And Ryan Tannehill is a veteran quarterback. He's going to know that, and he's going to use the tight end in intermediate routes. So I still like Chig Okonkwo a lot. So I think Packers fan, I don't agree with all of their picks, but when I look at their overall team composition, I think they're the ones that I like the most. I do like this start here of McCaffrey, Olave, Mandrews, Breece Hall when he comes back will be really effective. But Kadarius Toney, Michael Thomas, blah, blah, blah. Zay Jones, ultimate spot starter. But now it's like with Calvin Ridley there too. I don't think Zay Jones will be able to have those spot starts as often as he did. And even last year was not something you could really count on. It was hard to know when those ultimate spot starts were going to be. No, I'm going to go with Packers fan. 77 is the winner. Besides me, of course. Really like how this team... I punted tight end besides the Muth, which is fine. But I feel like week to week, this could be a really, the weeks where Tua blows up with Tyreek and Waddle, have those Bijan, Derrick Henry, and Najee to carry me kind of for the running backs. And then, again, Metcalf and Gabe Davis, those are two guys that are very capable of spike weeks. DJ Moore, I think, is going to be in for a really good season. And then Sutton... Sutton actually ended up being not a terrible pick for this roster because he kind of gives me like what I think is technically safe volume, depending. Well, obviously you would expect Sean Payton would be a massive improvement for that team. Even though what is going on with Sean Payton just dragging dirt on now I'm forgetting the name of the Nathaniel Hackett, just dragging dirt on Hackett's name, and Aaron Rodgers coming to the stage like Will Smith. Keep my coach's name out your mouth. On that note, this draft is over, and I'm about over too. Make sure, again, that you go sign up to fantasyfootballadviceforum.com. Thank you so much for joining me. Go check out Underdog. Not a sponsor, but man, they rock. The app's awesome, and they sent me free swag, so they've got a loyal fan of me for life. And again, follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Please go like, share, comment, subscribe. Come on. It takes 2 seconds of your day. Click-through rates are like 2%. I don't think people realize, like, it takes 10 seconds to go hit that like button and subscribe. Come on. Help a brother out. Catch you all on the flip side.
Is this the dagger?